right now, you probably have like a mental list of things you want to fix about yourself.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we all do, right?
Yeah, exactly. Maybe you want to be less anxious in meetings, or I don't know, maybe you want to be way more productive on the weekends.
Or maybe you just want to be a fundamentally better, like more enlightened person.
Right, because the logic of our modern culture basically tells us that if you can just identify a flaw, apply some kind of disciplined framework, and, put in the work, you will eventually achieve this perfected version of yourself.
Yeah, and that is the driving engine of the entire personal development industry. It operates on this really convincing premise, honestly.
Which is what, exactly?
Well, the premise that you're currently just a work in progress, but through rigorous effort, you can engineer your way to a state of permanent peace and, like, optimal performance.
But what if that sheer, relentless effort to fix yourself is the exact reason you feel broken in the first place?
Yeah, that is a wild thought.
Right. Like, what if the desire to conquer your fears and reach some future state of perfection is actually the very brick wall preventing you from finding any real peace at all?
Which completely upends the traditional paradigm, by the way.
Yeah.
Because it suggests that the actual act of striving for future liberation is the primary mechanism keeping you trapped in your current distress.
And that paradox is the core of our deep dive today. We are looking at a really fascinating transcript from a Q&A session that took place on January 7th, 2026.
Yeah, at the Amaravati Buddhist Monastery.
Exactly. And the speaker is Ajahn Sumedho, who is, a highly regarded figure in the Thai forest tradition.
And just to set the parameters for you listening, our objective today is not to present this material as, like, absolute dogma or religious truth.
Right. We're not preaching here.
No, not at all. We are exploring these concepts because this text offers this incredibly sharp, almost forensic lens on the human condition. It really dissects our modern obsession with continuous self-improvement and presents a fairly radical psychological alternative.
We are going to examine the tension between what the source calls the gradual path, which is this idea of working toward liberation there and then in the future, and the concept of immediate liberation here and now.
And by the end of this, we'll have extracted some profound insights about how we view our own lives, the biological reality of our fears, and what it actually means to grow.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the text begins by critiquing something that feels so deeply natural and just, necessary to us, which is the desire to get better.
Yeah, the source identifies this as the gradual path.
The gradual path. Okay, so what does that actually mean in this context?
So in the psychological or spiritual context, the gradual path is the assumption that if you perform certain actions, like studying or meditating or eliminating bad habits over years or decades, you will ultimately reach a state of pure tranquility.
So it's totally goal-oriented.
Entirely goal-oriented, yeah.
Man, that's a tough pill to swallow, because everything in our culture tells us that taking a gradual path is the only sensible way to learn anything.
Oh, for sure. It's how we learned everything.
Right. Like, if I want to learn the piano, I start with scales, I move on to simple melodies, and maybe a decade later I can play a concerto. So it seems completely logical that, managing anxiety or reaching spiritual maturity would follow that exact same trajectory of compounding effort.
Well, it seems logical until you examine the underlying psychology of that approach.
Okay, how so?
The source points out that treating internal liberation like acquiring a physical skill reinforces a really problematic narrative. It creates this deeply entrenched sense of me having to do something to get a result.
I see.
Yeah, the entire framework relies on the logic of, I have to get this in order to achieve that.
Which means you are constantly living in the state of psychological deficit.
Exactly.
You are essentially telling yourself every single day, current me is flawed or broken or insufficient. But future me, the one who has put in 10,000 hours of meditation or therapy, that version of me will finally be acceptable.
Precisely. It feeds the ego's absolute favorite narrative, which is, I am not good enough the way I am.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah, we hear that narrative all the time.
Right. And the text notes that this mindset generates a desperate desire to become pure, to forcefully evict bad thoughts or fears or jealousy from your mind.
We end up constructing this total false ideal of what an enlightened being actually looks like.
Yeah, the text uses the term arahant for an enlightened person.
Right, an arahant.
And it notes how we project this fantasy onto them. We imagine an arahant as someone who, never experiences worry, who is universally brave, flawlessly strong, and just eternally confident.
It's like we treat mental health and spiritual liberation like a video game skill tree.
Oh, that's a really good way to put it.
Yeah, like you start at level 1, your stats are terrible and you're full of doubt, so you just grind.
I grind away, yeah.
You read the self-help books, you optimize your morning routine, and you defeat the jealousy boss.
Yeah,
And then you defeat the fear boss.
right, and you just keep leveling up.
Exactly. You level up until you finally unlock the Enlightenment achievement, and suddenly your character is totally invincible to negative emotions.
But living that way is so exhausting.
It really is. It's an endless campaign of self-correction. And at its core, it's incredibly ego-driven.
Because it's still entirely focused on my stats, my progress, and my ultimate victory over my own mind.
Right.
And the fundamental problem with treating your mind like a video game skill tree is that in a game, the character's code is static and permanent.
Right. Mario is always Mario.
Exactly. But in reality, the character, meaning your biological form and your personality, is actively decaying and fluctuating while you are frantically trying to level it up.
Oh, wow. That's a grim but true reality.
What's fascinating here is why this approach is ultimately, mathematically doomed to fail. The source makes a definitive, uncompromising statement here.
Which is...
The personality itself can never be enlightened.
Wait, hold on. If the personality can't be enlightened, what are all these self-help frameworks and spiritual practices actually working on? I mean, we spend our whole lives trying to polish our personalities.
And that is exactly the trap. The personality is just a bundle of conditioned reactions, memories, and preferences.
Okay.
The very desire to become enlightened, to achieve this perfected state, is just another desire generated by that same personality.
Oh, I see. It's like the ego sneaking in the back door.
Totally. It's the ego wanting an obtainable goal that it believes it currently lacks. It is the ego trying to acquire a shiny new accessory called enlightenment, just to prove its own worth.
So as long as you're trying to fix the personality, you are trapped playing a game where the house always wins.
Yes, because the personality's defining trait is that it is never permanently satisfied.
Okay, but if our bodies are decaying and our personality is just this fluctuating mess of reactions, then trying to find permanent peace in those things is practically a mathematical impossibility.
Right.
Which means the only way out is to locate something that isn't subject to biological decay, which forces the question, what exactly are we dealing with when we look at this physical form?
To answer that, the source dives into the brutal mechanics of impermanence, which is referred to in Pali as anicca.
Anicca, got it.
The text explains that samsara, the cycle of life, the observable physical world, is fundamentally defined by imperfection and relentless change. It is biologically and physically unstable.
And the speaker uses some really stark, undeniable examples of this instability, right? Things we see all the time but usually choose to ignore because they remind us of our own fragility.
Yeah, the changing of the seasons is the macro example he uses. The speaker notes how at the Amaravati monastery, snow blanketed the ground, and just a few days later, the snow was entirely gone, just melted into the earth.
Right, and we use terms like winter, spring, summer, and autumn to create this comforting illusion of structured phases.
When in reality, it is just continuous, inescapable change. And then the speaker turns the lens inward onto their own biological reality.
The example of their failing eyesight is so striking to me.
It really is.
Yeah, the speaker mentions they used to have 20/20 vision, like perfect pilot-level vision. But now, as an older individual speaking to a crowd, they can hardly make out the faces in the audience.
And the ego, the personality, desperately demands to hold on to that 20/20 vision forever.
Because it builds an identity around being sharp and capable.
Right. But the biological reality is that the eyes themselves, the physical lenses through which the observer attempts to navigate this world, are actively degenerating.
It really highlights a profound cognitive dissonance we all have. We operate under the delusion that we are stable, permanent observers evaluating a changing world.
But the biological machinery doing the observing is changing just as rapidly. And the text takes this physical reality and makes a really bold claim about the ultimate cause of our psychological suffering, or dukkha.
Okay, what's the claim?
It argues that the root of suffering isn't necessarily an unfortunate childhood, or a bad career choice, or past trauma.
Wait, really?
Yeah, the ultimate cause is simply the fact of being born into a highly delicate, vulnerable human form that is biologically guaranteed to experience old age, sickness, and death.
I have to pause here and push back on this on behalf of you listening.
Sure, go ahead.
Because in modern psychology, we dedicate immense resources to unpacking our pasts. We trace our current anxieties back to childhood environments, interpersonal traumas, specific life events.
Great, we do.
If the source argues that the root of my distress isn't my unique personal history, but just the cold biological fact that I inhabit a fragile body doomed to fail, isn't that incredibly bleak? I mean, it sounds like a fast track to nihilism.
I completely see why it feels dismissive of our personal narratives at first. But within this philosophical framework, acknowledging biological fragility is actually intended to be the ultimate psychological relief.
Relief, how so?
It introduces the concept of not-self, or anatta. The core delusion driving our misery is the mind's insistence on identifying with this fragile biology and this unstable personality as me.
Yeah.
We mistakenly attach our sense of core identity to temporary physical and emotional states.
I get it. So, when my body fails or my mood drops, I interpret it as a fundamental failure of my identity rather than just, biology doing what biology does.
Precisely.
Yeah.
If you believe you are your personality, then every time you feel afraid or jealous, you view it as a moral failing. You think, oh, I am broken, I didn't try hard enough in therapy, I am a bad person.
Right.
But when you realize that fear is just the nervous system of a delicate mammal reacting to stimuli, it removes the personal blame entirely.
Because the human form is just fragile.
Exactly. Personalities naturally fluctuate based on external conditions, praise, blame, exhaustion, physical health. Recognizing that this instability is entirely impersonal is deeply liberating.
You are no longer morally responsible for the fact that a biological organism experiences fear. That actually shifts the entire burden. It takes the weight of the universe off your shoulders.
It really does.
But it brings us right back to the central problem. If my biology is decaying, if my senses are unreliable data gatherers, and my personality is just this impersonal collection of reactions, if every physical and psychological component is guaranteed to fail, what part of us actually survives this change? There has to be a stable vantage point somewhere.
And that brings us to the ultimate pivot in the source material. The shift to the here and now.
Right. The text asserts that the only thing that doesn't change is pure conscious awareness.
Yeah, and it describes this awareness in terms of what it lacks. It has no physical form, no shape, no weight. It is invisible.
It operates completely independently of your failing eyesight, your aging body, or even the neural pathways in your brain. The text refers to this pure, unconditioned consciousness as the deathless reality of Dharma.
Crucially, this pure awareness is not a prize waiting for you at the end of the gradual path. It isn't something you synthesize through 10 years of intense meditation.
So it's already there.
It is the baseline reality. It is apparent here and now, completely outside the flow of chronological time.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the clearest way to visualize this distinction is by thinking of a movie theater.
Oh, the movie theater analogy is perfect for this.
Yeah. So your personality, your memories, your physical senses, the drama of your career, your anxieties, that is the movie playing on the screen. It's a high-definition, immersive film full of romance, tragedy, car chases, jump scares.
And we spend 99% of our lives gripping the armrests, totally absorbed in the plot, trying to mentally control what the characters do in the next scene.
Exactly. But pure conscious awareness, that is the blank white screen itself.
Yes, that is the perfect distinction.
Because the screen doesn't care if a romantic comedy or a slasher film is playing. The screen doesn't get burned when there's an explosion in the movie.
Not at all.
It is completely untouched, unharmed, and unaffected by the chaotic projection happening across its surface.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it reveals the massive paradigm shift this text is asking of us.
Yeah.
It is asking you to stop trying to edit the movie while it's playing.
Wow, yeah.
Stop trying to jump into the screen to fix the characters. Instead, trust in the blank screen itself. Shift your identification away from the volatile sensory input and rest in the pure awareness that simply observes the input.
And the text uses a specific Pali term to invite people into this shift, doesn't it?
Yes, the word is ihapasiko.
Ihapasiko.
It translates as an open invitation to come and see. It is a direct challenge to the listener. He basically says, do not take this purely on faith, and do not just intellectually memorize this concept to sound smart at dinner parties.
Right.
You have to verify this baseline awareness through your own direct experience.
And the source issues a severe warning about how we try to understand this concept too. It warns against getting trapped by language.
Which is tricky, since we're using language right now.
Exactly. But whether you use a Pali word like ahapasiko or English words like awareness or Thai phrases, words themselves are just impermanent human constructs. They are just sound waves that arise and vanish.
Yeah, the text explicitly says you cannot realize true dharma, true reality, by clinging to concepts. You have to investigate the silence that exists behind the spoken words in your own mind.
That is so profound.
Well, words are inherently dualistic. They divide the world into this and that. They are tools of the personality used to categorize the changing physical world.
Well, pure awareness is just the vast silent space that allows those cognitive constructs to appear and disappear.
Exactly.
So how do we pull this from the realm of abstract philosophy into the reality of, say, a Tuesday morning commute?
Right, the practical application.
Yeah, like if you wake up and your chest is tight with anxiety about a presentation, or you are furious at a colleague, how do you apply this without accidentally slipping into total emotional dissociation? How do we handle negative emotions without going to war with them?
The Source offers a profoundly practical, yet radical, redefinition of processing emotions. It plays with the etymology of the word understanding.
Okay.
Rather than using your intellect to understand why you are suffering, tracing it back to a childhood event or a specific trigger, it advises you to practice standing under the suffering.
Standing under suffering, that paints a completely different physical relationship to pain.
It requires observational distance. Standing under means you look directly at an intense feeling, be it jealousy or panic or grief, and you simply acknowledge it as a natural phenomenon.
Like saying, oh, panic feels like this in the body.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You observe it as a temporary weather condition that has just rolled into your physical form. What the text vehemently rejects is the militaristic language that dominates modern self-improvement.
Like what?
It argues against the idea that we must conquer our demons or crush our weaknesses or kill the ego.
Oh, right. The speaker actually mentions how unhelpful and violently absurd the advice to kill your defilements truly is.
Yeah, it's terrible advice.
Because if you declare war on your own mind, you are just fracturing your psyche and fighting yourself. And it's a war you are guaranteed to lose because, as we established, fear isn't a moral defect. It is a deeply natural biological response for a delicate human form navigating a dangerous world.
And the speaker grounds this in beautifully mundane examples. They talk about the very real fear of driving through complex, aggressive London traffic.
Oh man, London traffic is terrifying.
Right. It would be insane not to feel a spike of fear when navigating a fragile biological body through a maze of speeding 2-ton metal machines.
For sure.
The same applies to the fear older people experience as they feel their physical faculties failing. These aren't spiritual failures. They are the rational reactions of an organism aware of its mortality.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? I mean, the relief is astronomical. It means you are officially off the hook.
Yes, you are.
You do not have to conquer your anxiety. You do not have to eradicate your insecurities to be worthy of peace. You don't have to look in the mirror and say, I am an anxious person, and I must destroy this part of myself.
No, not at all.
You just have to patiently endure the emotion as a passing atmospheric event. It is storming in your nervous system right now, but atmospheric conditions always change.
And by identifying as the pure awareness, the vast sky behind the weather, you recognize that the storm clouds of panic or anger are just moving through the space.
So letting go doesn't mean fighting it.
Letting go, in this context, doesn't mean forcibly suppressing an emotion or dissociating from it. It means cultivating what the text calls patient endurance and wisdom.
Patient endurance.
When you stand firmly under these intense emotional forms and refuse to feed them with narratives, they exhaust their energy and dissipate on their own. Their fundamental nature is anicca impermanence. They literally lack the structural integrity to stay forever, even if they wanted to.
Man, we have charted a massive psychological shift today. I mean, we started by dismantling the exhausting, ego-driven treadmill of the gradual path, where we constantly try to optimize our personalities to reach a fictional future state of unbothered perfection.
Yeah, and we recognize how that framework secretly sustains the belief that we are currently inadequate.
Right, and from there, we confronted the unvarnished reality of impermanence. We looked at the biological instability of our bodies, our senses, and our environments, realizing that our suffering stems from demanding permanence from a biological system that is designed to decay.
And by embracing anatta, or not self, we learn to stop taking our natural physiological reactions as personal moral failures.
And finally, we found the anchor, resting in the timeless, formless space of pure conscious awareness, becoming the blank movie screen that remains entirely unblemished by the chaotic, dramatic movie of our daily lives playing out on top of it.
Which leaves you with a highly practical tool. The next time a wave of overwhelming frustration or fear hits you, you don't need to launch a violent internal campaign to eradicate it. You don't need to fix your mind.
You can just observe it.
You can simply step back, stand under the storm, and patiently watch the biology run its course, knowing the weather will inevitably break.
It changes the entire metric of what it means to be at peace.
This raises an important question, though.
Oh, what's that?
If this pure awareness is truly formless, invisible, and operates completely independently of our failing eyes, our aging bodies, and even the neural networks in our brains, what happens to that awareness when the biological machinery stops functioning entirely?
Oh, wow.
If awareness isn't generated by the physical form, does the collapse of the physical form even touch it? Or, to bring it back to our earlier point, if words are just impermanent human creations that block us from ultimate reality, what would happen if, just for 5 minutes today, you stopped listening to the words in your own head and tried to listen entirely to the silence behind them?
That completely redefines how we might think about mortality and, well, consciousness itself. It is a profound mystery to chew on today. Thank you so much for joining us as we unpack this incredible text. Keep exploring the mechanics of your own mind, keep questioning the frameworks you've been handed, and remember, maybe the most radical thing you can do today isn't fixing yourself, but finally allowing yourself to just be the screen. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.